Welcome to your Cornell Cooperative Extension, Dutchess County's Academy of Possibilities. I am Michael Woods and serve as the association's executive director. Through our new Academy of Possibilities, the magic behind Cornell Cooperative Extension and CCEDC programming will be featured online with engaging activities, stimulating discussions, and groundbreaking work in pursuit of economic vitality, ecological sustainability, and social well-being. The Academy of Possibilities will bring local experience and research-based solutions together, showcasing the dynamic ways that CCEDC staff continue to help families and communities thrive in our rapidly changing world. Since 4-H began more than 100 years ago, it has become the nation's largest youth development organization and serves over 2,000 youth across Dutchess County each year. The 4-H idea is simple: help young people and their families gain the skills needed to be proactive forces in their communities and develop ideas for a more innovative economy. Joining me today is Andy Turner, New York State 4-H Program Leader and Assistant Director of CCE. Thank you, Andy, for taking time out of your schedule to share with us the exciting things taking place within 4-H across New York and right here in Dutchess County. Before we get started learning more about 4-H within New York State, could you share your personal and professional path to directing New York State's 4-H initiatives?
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. Yes, I'm a New Yorker. I grew up in Western New York State, south of Rochester in Livingston County, so pretty rural, pretty agrarian-based community there. And I was raised kind of in a 4-H family. My parents were both extension educators. My father was what we called the county coordinator back in those days. And my mom was a 4-H home economics teacher for a number of years. So I grew up, with a lot of exposure to extension and 4-H. And for me, the kind of the seed probably was my interest in the outdoors and nature. So I spent a lot of my childhood outside experiencing nature and learning about nature on my own. And 4-H for me created kind of a structure for that, a way to pursue that wasn't available through, your regular school experience. My goal was to be a fishery biologist at one point, and I went to SUNY Cobleskill to pursue fishery and wildlife technology, and then I went to Cornell as an undergrad in natural resources. I found my way to extension through kind of a interesting pathway, but it turned out that for me, that working in the policy management people side of an organization was a better fit than pure science. And so I took a position right out of Cornell within a year of graduation down in Rockland County, so pretty close to you. And I was a 4-H educator there, and then a program leader for 9 years, returned to Cornell for a master's degree, and then I moved up into the Catskills into Greene County. And so that theme of kind of outdoors, nature, environmental studies continued for me in the work we were doing there with what's still the Agroforestry Resource Center project was a big part of my experience there in Greene County. So kind of moved more into that administrative side of the organization at that point. And while I was there, we also had the Columbia Green associations coming together during my tenure there. Moved to Cornell in 2012 to work for then the director, Helene Dillard, as a state extension specialist. And after a couple of years, the opportunity arose to move into 4-H as an interim 4-H program leader. And didn't expect that, came out of nowhere, but I missed some of the hands-on aspects of being an extension professional that you have in a county office, where you're helping design the program, seeing them implemented, getting that tangible firsthand experience with people. And the 4-H position felt like that would be an opportunity to do that again, but also think about where is this program moving? How do we interact with our faculty resources? And of course, with 4-H, it's a global, it's across the entire country, but even in many other countries. So I quickly realized this is the position I wanted to stay in. So I've been doing it since 2014 now in the state 4-H program leader role, and really just loving the opportunities and challenges that come with that position.
Wonderful. Well, thanks so much. I suspect in your role that you're often asked, what is the mission of 4-H and how does it benefit youth, families, and our communities?
Yes, I think we think about oftentimes what we do in 4-H, and that's such a powerful part of what happens with young people. The hands-on experiential learning model of 4-H is critical to the success, and why I think young people are so willing to jump in and participate and stay in the program. If we think about what are the longer term implications of that, it's really that positive youth development for young people, helping them grow into healthy adults and learn how to interact with each other, communication skills, leadership skills. And oftentimes in 4-H, and what we're using the term sparks a lot now, and it fits with our positive youth development model that we may talk a little bit more about. But the idea that through 4-H you can be exposed to something new and exciting that really sparks an interest for a young person. And that often leads to thinking about what they may want to do in their college or in their career path. So kind of creating that pathway to their adulthood and giving them passions that can lead to lifetime, happiness and success. That's really what 4-H is all about.
I'm wondering if you could share with us, how would you describe 4-H to someone who does not know anything about the organization and or your youth development initiatives?
I think I would start with the idea that 4-H is based on learning by doing, that giving people access to things that they may not have experienced under the guidance of caring adults is the core. That's where the magic is. So that could be so many different things in 4-H, and oftentimes we focus on those things. And I think that's important because that's what attracts youth and adults and communities to the program. So whether that's an animal science project or a computer science project or a community service project, public speaking, the thing itself is important because it attracts the young person to the program. They want to learn about horses. They want to learn how to code. They want to be involved in something after school that's positive with their friends that leads to supporting their community. And so we need to lead with those activities and let people know what they are and that we have strong resources to support that. But then we also, I think when you're talking to adults and funders, you want to be able to communicate that broader impact, which is developing those life skills, confidence, the ability to communicate with other young people, having a passion for something that can carry them into, a career vision or a college vision. So I think starting with it's hands-on, it's fun, it's interactive, it's engaging, that puts youth working with other youth and there are adults who help guide it is key. And then bringing it up to that level of, but here are the long-term impacts that we know 4-H can lead to for young people. And it works whether you're in an urban environment, a rural environment, suburban environment. As long as you have that formula of the developmental relationships that young people need, you can have longer term impact. And again, the activities, they might come into 4-H thinking about one thing, but as a result, be exposed to something they never thought about. And that could be the spark for that young person. So I think having a variety of different programs and activities is critical to what makes 4-H work, because that attracts volunteers and attracts youth. Then I think having that core in all the programs, it's about the positive youth development and what we need to do to make that happen is the key.
Wonderful. For many decades, 4-H has served the youth across the nation, state, and right here in Dutchess County. I'm curious if you could give us a general view of what's new and exciting within 4-H on the state and national level that could be launched here in Dutchess County.
Through the pandemic and having to think about how do we do this through virtual formats, knowing that we want and hope and anticipate getting back to the hands-on programming that we're known for and getting 4-H community clubs back together again and having 4-H camps reopen, all those things. But in the meantime, we've had to be very creative. And I think the local staff have been very creative and innovative in finding ways to engage youth online, at least during this time period. So there's been a lot of attention to that across the country, thinking about how do we maintain the core of what 4-H is, that hands-on experience, but also realize that so many youth find their way to new things now through the internet. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to be in both places. We've got to have access points that make it easy to find out what this is, experiment with, have ways for youth to experiment with it, and then hopefully find their way to the longer term 4-H programming that can lead to that large impact. So I think a big piece is that, trying to figure that out, like so many youth organizations right now, and experiment there. And some of the things we've learned, I think, will go beyond the pandemic. We won't stop doing some of those virtual introductions to 4-H, or things that could be statewide that youth might tap into and then find out about their local program as well. So one of the advantages we have is 4-H is pretty much in every county in the United States. And there's a lot of local innovation that happens there, and strength of educators across the country. So how do we, bring some of that together and scale it up so youth can participate in 4-H opportunities across the country, but also then access what they can do in their own home community? The other one I'd say is really big for us now is just making sure that all youth know 4-H is for them. When you've been around for as long as we have and successful, there can be an image of the program that's not as inclusive as we would like, and thinking, well, 4-H is that's the program for kids who live on farms, when in reality, probably less than 10% of youth who are in 4-H in 2021 live on farms. But still, the image is strong. So we want to build on the strength of the agriculture, agrarian roots of the program, the animal science programming, but also help people to realize our biggest program area now is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And we have lots of ways you can engage there and learn new things together in new environments. So I would say it's expanding the opportunities that we have, reaching more youth across all of our communities, and also keeping that core of the experiential learning at the heart of it. That's where we're really heading as a 4-H program across the country.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And we look forward to having more of these exciting efforts brought to Dutchess County. With these in mind, could you share with the viewers what are the most important life skills that 4-H members gain as a result of 4-H participation?
Absolutely. I think sometimes we forget about it because it's so good, we take it for granted, but the head, heart, hands, and health, the 4-H's themselves, I think really do a good job of pointing to that and to what those long-term impacts of the program are. And we know from research that has been done, and we're about to launch into some more research into 4-H's impact for youth. One of the things we know is that the longer they're in the program, the more 4-H they get, essentially, the more these impacts result. And so thinking about, think about the head of the 4-H's is kind of that academic, cognitive piece, learning new things and learning in ways that can be more powerful sometimes because you're experiencing it directly. We like to think at 4-H, you get your hands in the dirt. It's not just learning in the classroom. You're experiencing it directly. So I think that cognitive development piece from head. I think heart, to me, it's kind of like 4-H does help young people give back and learn how to give back and understand the importance of, contributing to their own communities. So that heart piece, I think, comes through in our commitment to community service and engagement, not just enough to learn something yourself. The idea is, how can you give back to your community or your family with the things you're learning in the program? I think hands is the obvious one. We want them to be hands-on. We want them to, and make mistakes. I think part of learning is making mistakes and learning from that. So creating an environment where youth feel comfortable, the sense of belonging is so important to successful positive youth development. So the hands-on with people that care about you, give you an opportunity to grow and encourage you to take some risks, I think is a big part of that. And finally, health. And I think this one is so important, and even more so now with the pandemic and some of the things we're learning about the challenges young people are facing, mental health challenges and stress and anxiety. So 4-H can really help develop healthy skills that can last a lifetime, whether that's nutrition, being active, and how to be a good, collaborator. What more important life skill could we have now than really learning how to work with other people well and share ideas, but also be a good listener. So I think that health issue is increasingly important in 4-H, and something maybe we took it for granted in the past. So we're encouraging educators now to think about, when designing those 4-H programs and spaces, what can we do intentionally to create that sense of belonging for youth, to give them a space to check in, how are they doing, how are they feeling. If young people are not feeling comfortable, and ready to learn, you're not going to have the same impact. So taking the time to just figure out how people are feeling and doing, and creating that kind of space where there's honest and caring adults there to guide the youth. So I think the 4-H's really guide us in terms of what our long-term impacts are for the program.
Wonderful. Stay tuned to learn more about CCEDC programming through our Academy of Possibilities. And take time now to reach out to Hudson Valley Gives and support your CCEDC and showcase that you're all in to support our initiatives and programming right here in Dutchess.